Module 2, Objective 5, describe the main structural features or strata of the epidermis and explain the functional significance of each. The epidermis is a stratified squamous epithelium, and like all epithelia, it's avascular, so it doesn't have a blood supply. Nutrients and oxygen, as well as waste products, they have to diffuse from the capillaries in the dermis. The cells of the epidermis, the cells that make that stratified squamous epithelium, are keratinocytes, and they're named because they produce a lot of keratin. There are two types of skin that covers the surface of the body. Thin skin covers the majority of the body, and it has 4 layers of these keratinocytes. Thick skin is found in the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet, and they contain a 5th layer of keratinocytes. The layers of keratinocytes in thick skin from the basement membrane of that stratified squamous epithelium to the free surface are in this order. You have the stratum basale, the stratum spinosum, the stratum granulosum, the stratum lucidum, and then superficially you have the stratum corneum. Here we see those. Your stratum basale is this layer down here at the very bottom, and then you can work your way up. The stratum spinosum, granulosum, lucidum, and finally the corneum. As the cells move from the basement membrane towards the surface of the skin, they are dying. In fact, the cells of the stratum corneum up here at the top, they are most certainly dead. And it's this dead water resistance layer of cells that we find on the surface of our skin. And these cells are always flaking off and leaving our body. In fact, if you ever suffered from dandruff, they're just large flakes of this dead stratum corneum that flake off. They're often found in the scalp, coming from the scalp because of the hair. But these are the layers of keratinocytes. So why are these cells dying? There's a number of different reasons. One of the things to consider is the fact that the blood supply is all the way down here in the dermis. So nutrients has to diffuse up into these strata or these layers of keratinocytes, and waste products have to diffuse back towards the blood supply. So as cells move further and further from the vasculature, from their lifeline, if you will, they have a more difficult time getting nutrients and getting rid of waste products. And that's one reason why they die as they migrate up. The stratum basale, also known as the stratum germinativum, this is the layer attached to the basement membrane. They form a strong bond between the epidermis and the dermis, and they contain epidermal ridges, and we'll see an image of this in a minute, next to the dermal papillae of the dermis. They have many basal cells or germinative cells that are actually stem cells. So they divide, and in doing so, they're going to replace the keratinocytes that are falling off of our body. So if you think of the basement membrane, you have a layer of cells here that comprise the stratum basale, and these cells are stem cells in that they're going to divide, and as they go through the cell cycle, they end up creating 2 identical daughter cells. One of those daughter cells is going to replace the parent. The other daughter cell is going to be pushed superficially, and this cell is eventually going to migrate all the way up to the stratum corneum, where it's going to fall off the body. That's just a natural life cycle for these cells. Here is the epidermal ridges. We call them fingerprints, or they give rise to fingerprints in thick skin, again on the palmar surface of the hands and the plantar, or the sole of the foot. What is the function of fingerprints? Well, it's not identification, that's just a subsequent use of the fingerprint, but fingerprints increases surface area for grip. So someone who has fingerprints, they're going to be able to grip more effectively because the surface area of their hand is actually enlarged. Other cells found or structures found within the stratum basale, we have tactile discs. These are cells with nerve endings that are found in hairless skin, and they respond to touch, so they're part of the nervous system. We also have melanocytes. Melanocytes are cells within the stratum basale that produce the pigment melanin. Melanin is a yellow to brown to black pigment that colors our skin, our hair, the iris of our eyes even. The next layer is the stratum spinosum, or the spiny layer. This consists of 8 to 10 layers of keratinocytes that are just superficial to the stratum basale. And these cells appear spiny in histological sections. In fact, here we might have the cell. Very spiny looking. The reason they're spiny is these cells are slowly dehydrating. They're losing some of their cytoplasm, their fluid, and in doing so, they look spiny. From there, we have the stratum granulosum, the granular layer, or the grainy layer. These are 3 to 5 layers of keratinocytes. They're produced from cells that were part of the stratum spinosum previously. And these cells are grainy. They have lots of granules inside of them, which give them a grainy appearance. The grains inside are proteins keratin as well as keratohyalin. Okay, so these cells are actively, very quickly producing a lot of the protein keratin and keratohyalin. They're going to form dense granules, and they're going to promote cellular dehydration and cross-linking between the keratin fibers so that you can produce this watertight or this water-resistant layer. After the production of the proteins, the cells are going to die. The stratum lucidum is the clear layer. This is the layer that's only found in thick skin. Lucid means clear. If someone is lucid, they're clear of mind. And again, it's only found in the palmar surface of the hands and the plantar surface of the foot, or the soles of the foot. And then lastly, we have the stratum corneum, the horny layer. This is our exposed surface of the skin. It's water resistant, and it consists of anywhere between 15 and 30 layers of these keratinocytes. Keratinization is the formation of that layer of dead protective cells that are filled with keratin. We find keratinized cells on all exposed surfaces except for the eyes. And it takes between 7 to 10 days for a cell to move from the stratum basale to the stratum corneum. We lose 10 billion cells a day, and that equates to about half a pound a year. These cells slough or fall off our body. They end up all over the place. We're constantly shedding cells. I mean, 10 billion cells a day, that's a tremendous number. A lot of these cells end up in our beds. That's why it's important to vacuum your beds. No need to worry. We have mites that live in our beds that actually consume these cells, but then they produce byproducts which some of us are allergic to.